It's always been a special day for me since the original October 21. So every October 21, I get on my knees and thank God, right? Or I could say the opposite. You sometimes get what you pray for, and so I'm not sure it's what I really wanted, you know? Anyway, yeah, the date's significant because that was the day I won the first prize in the Naumburg competition, and it happened to be a very special Naumburg. It was the 50th anniversary of the foundation and of the competition specifically, because there are Naumburg orchestral concerts in the bandshell in Central Park. That has a different anniversary, but this was celebrating, Ned Naumburg said it was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Naumburg Foundation and competitions. So it was named the 50th anniversary Naumburg competitions because there was a violin competition before mine 1 week earlier. Elmar Oliveira won that one. And then there was a vocal one the week before that, and Clamadale won that along with Joyce Simpson. It was a tie for first prize for the vocal. And I won the first prize in piano, and it was about 6 p.m. that day when they made the announcement. I remember it was right by the little red phone booth backstage of Carnegie. And we were all huddled around this one door where Lucy Mann was going to post the names. I remember it was just squiggled on there, you know, it was nothing fancy, just Dickran Atamian first prize and blah, 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 you know. So, yeah, it's a very special day. I remember pretty much everything that happened after that. From 6 p.m. on, we had quite a night. It was interesting. Yeah, I mean, the process is different for Naumburg. It starts with a tape round, and hundreds of people applied. And lots of, you know, you can talk about Naumburg winners from Adele Marcus to George Bollett to Awadagin Pratt to Stephen Huff to Kavakos, the violinist. There's so many people that have won this special award. It's the oldest established competition in the world, and arguably the most difficult because you have a jury. I don't mean to say that other juries are not sensational, but you have a very scrupulous kind of judgment. I remember people on my jury included Serkin and Watts and Verkujny and Bollett, and I mean some pretty legendary names, you know. You had a few unknowns like Anne Shine, who was Earl Carlos's wife, the pianist Anne Shine. Carlos was the second violinist of the Juilliard Quartet at the time. Robert Mann was not on the jury, but he was the president of the Naumburg at the time. We became pretty good friends after that. Just a lot of people. Mieczysław Muntz, you know, who was Axe's teacher, was on the jury. Abby Simon was on the jury, who won the Naumburg, big name pianist. William Masellis, who won the Naumburg and was an RCA recording artist, a Greek pianist that really made it quite big in the time of Capel, when Capel was alive. Capel, probably the most prominent person that I can think of was William Capel, that won the Naumburg. This was a big deal. And then, shortly after that, he passed away in the plane crash, in the tragedy of the classical music business. That in itself is a story with Norman Belli being the lawyer for the Capel estate and bringing Rubinstein and Heifetz in to testify as to how much William Capel would have made had he lived, Anyway, that's another story. But the Naumburg conjures up tremendous amount of names from the past. So the Naumburg gets respect, if not for its genuine heralded qualities, but it has lasted the longest. And it's still going. It just shows you how much money the Naumburgs put into this trust, or whatever it was, to continue this fantastic legacy that is celebrated on this day, October 21st. It's now their 100th birthday. Today is their 100th birthday. And 50th birthday for me as a winner, but 100 for the Naumburg. That's pretty good. To begin with, to answer this question is Gilels won the Queen Elizabeth, Fleischer won the Queen Elizabeth, Browning, I believe, won the Queen Elizabeth, Clyburn won the Tchaikovsky. So I'm not saying that only Naumburg winners are famous or whatever, but the thing that I think clinched the Naumburg success was its covetedness. It was a coveted prize, mainly because of its jury, I think. I think the jury attracted people and repelled people possibly from entering. It was a very distinguished jury. I mean, look, if George Bollett is sitting there as the chairman of the jury, like what are you going to do? Like, you can say to yourself, what can I do to impress Jorge Bollett? But actually, we became very fast friends after that. He was my mentor soon after that event. I think it's the jury, the quality of the jury. I think it's the non-gladiator style of the competition. It's closed behind doors, no screens. They see the artist, but it's dark. It's cavernous in Carnegie Hall. It was in the big hall, the finals. You don't see anybody. I remember walking out and I thought, is this the Twilight Zone or what? And the jury's way back. Perhaps they were in the second or third tier or whatever. But you don't see anybody. I know there are a bunch of Juilliard kids in the front row because I saw them, like Pan Liris and, a few people. But, I think it's an intrinsic quality. Naumburg suggests prestige. Naumburg suggests oldness, It's like an antique. The Leventritt folded because of lack of interest. Rose Leventritt couldn't get enough money, to keep it going, I guess. The Tchaikovsky is a big prize, very big prize, and it's made some careers. Barry Douglas, and Clyburn, and Misha Dichter, who we'll be talking about very soon. I mean, I think Dichter had the most prolific career of any Tchaikovsky winner, except for maybe Ashkenazy. I mean, the other guy that tied with him didn't have a big career. It's a strange name. I forgot his name. He's a big guy, a very interesting pianist that tied with Ashkenazy for first prize. I forgot his name now, but it'll come to me. But no, it's not so much the winners that came out of it that made careers. I mean, the Clyburn produced a pianist from South Africa that had somewhat of a career. You might remember him. He studied with Serkin. Can't think of his name right now. He also passed away in a from injuries in a plane crash in the Grand Canyon because he was a pilot. He piloted his own plane. But anyway, he was another one that had a semi-career, and Jose Fagali had sort of a career for a while until his untimely death. So it seems I'm now sounding like the Clyburn is a deathbed of concert pianists, but I can't think of anyone in the Naumburg that died with an untimely death, but they all died. They have that in common. We all die, right? So I think that's the whole point, is the legacy. The Naumburg has a fantastic amount of money and amount of legacy and amount of prestige that keeps it burning. It's just burning. Now, they used to be located in the Juilliard building. Okay, now they're in Harlem. I guess they're in Manhattan School. And the finals used to be in Carnegie Main Hall, Stern Auditorium it's called now, right? And now I think the finals are some less prominent and ubiquitous place, like maybe in one of the schools in New York, Manus or something, or Town Hall or something like that. I don't think it's in a big hall like Carnegie anymore. But this was the 50th anniversary, and I was very lucky to win it because it helped propel my career. What career I did have, I have to owe it to the Naumburg, maybe a few other events, signing with RCA, doing the Rite of Spring, things like that. But the Naumburg was huge for me. It changed my whole life. Yeah, 19's young. As a matter of fact, if you want to hear, there's so much anecdotal stuff. Abby Simon, I was told these stories later. Abby said to Bolette, listen, Atamian, phenomenal talent, but he rewrites the music. And Bolette said, excuse me, he is the most devoted to the score if you look carefully. If you're not looking carefully, then you don't know what I know, is that he's very devoted to the score. And so then Bolette said, do you want him in a wheelchair before you give him the prize? What is this? Something like that. And so they said, yeah, okay. So I got 9 unanimous votes for first place. I didn't get any votes for second. I had all 9 jury members voted me as the first prize winner, which is a unanimous vote. So they tabulated it like, how many votes for third did the person get? How many votes for second? They put it all together. I'm not sure how they tabulate these things, but it was, I must say, without boasting, I was the clear winner. Mainly because of one statement I heard. I think, what was that? Constance Keene said to me after I won. She came backstage. She was another distinguished member of the jury. She won the Naumburg, I think, and she recorded all the Rachmaninoff preludes, and she was married to Abram Chasins, and all this stuff. And she said, we felt we were witnessing Horowitz's debut. And I remember giving her a smart aleck answer, which I will not repeat now on camera. I'm not a big fan of Horowitz, so I said something to the effect, please compare me to someone great like Gilels, something like that. And so, yeah, it's a pretty snotty thing, but I was 19, and like most 19-year-olds, they're full of themselves. At that point, winning the Naumburg, you kind of go, well, I've made it. And that's a story into itself. You certainly have not made it when you win a competition. I think they were looking for someone who really had something to say, and not just with this, They wanted someone with heart, and if you're asking me to describe my playing, I can do that. I think I have something urgent to say, and I say it well. That's what they're looking for. I'm listening to all these competitions lately, I really don't want to, because kind of they all sound the same to me, but I listened a little bit to the Chopin recently, and the Clyburn, and I have to say, these people sound like, most of them sound like robots. They sound very schooled, and, polished to a certain extent. It depends on how you define polish. It's like Clinton, define what the definition of is. It's like, what is polish and what is something to say? These are all very nebulous things. and people are going to all have different opinions on, well, what is it when you say you have something to say? I mean, they can easily tear me apart on all of these terms, but the fact is, I won because I was unique. I was different than the other contestants. And that no one can argue. We can argue, oh, so-and-so was this good, or he played the Hammerklavier. There was a guy that played the Hammerklavier in the finals, and he was very good. And another one that played Petrushka. I won't name the names of the other winners. It's not, it's not nice and it's not pertinent. But although my friend Santiago Rodriguez, I will say, who I love dearly, won second. He tied for second with Alan Weiss. And anecdotally, I slept at Santiago's house the whole week of the Naumburg. The 2 weeks we were there, I was on a mattress right below his bed. And we were very close, We went to school together, we double dated together, we did a lot of things. So Santiago is a very, big memory in my past. So I will mention him. And a fabulous pianist, but he could have won the prize. But I think that judging from what I heard of the finalists, that's why I won, because it was different. And to be different can sometimes be lethal. But in this case, it was exactly what they were looking for. think what I do at the piano is I hear the harmonies clearly, passing one harmony to the next, and whatever I do with the soprano or the tenor or the alto, it has to do with the whole harmony. Whatever I do musically with each voice and the space between each note or chord, that's where the magic occurs. Like Mozart said, it's not the notes, it's the space between the notes that counts. And I've always felt that, even before I heard that statement. I've always felt it's what passes between these pillars of note values that count. And I think that I hear harmonic intensification and harmonic impetus and a harmonic tension. These are the things that make my playing different. I think if you hear like the second movement of my Liszt second concerto, it's very clear that it's ubiquitous, it's easily recognized. That's another thing about my playing is most people, if they know the playing, they'll say, oh yeah, that's Atamian or something like that. Not that I'm famous, but if they know my playing, they can spot it. Yeah, well, it's kind of also a unique story. John Perry was my formative teacher, and I prepared that entire competition with him, and I was actually a student of John Perry at the time I won the Naumburg, which is pretty rare. Most of these winners go on from their formative teachers, and they study with, like, I know a pianist who will remain nameless that studied with Perry, and then he studied with Fleischer, then he studied with the guy in the Beaux-Arts trio, I forget his name, and then he won Rubinstein or something. That's not really a student of Perry, okay? That's a combo burrito, you know? I was strictly a product of John Perry, and from that win, I might say, again, not to boast about it, but it's just, I speak to the fact. Perry started to get, I remember people coming backstage all over the world when I played and said, do you think John can do something with my playing like he did with yours? And my answer was classic, I thought. I said, well, there is such a thing as talent, you know. So, you know, in other words, kind of downplaying the John Perry part of the training. But no, I have to say that John, he recently passed, and it was very, for me, it was really a, you know, low moment. But John didn't tell you how to play. He really, here, he was different. I didn't play that way. But he inspired you to do better. He inspired you to really get to the core of the piece and to get the core of the phrase, to get to the core of the passage. Core was his thing. What's the real core of everything? And I think that was his talent. And like I've told other people that have asked me in the past, I don't teach that much, but when I do, I say, go to the teacher, whoever it is, and get what they've got to say, throw away the bad, keep the good. You don't have to take everything, and you don't have to respect the person like they're God or something. You know, just because they have little foibles here and there doesn't mean you can't learn anything from them. We're all not perfect. Okay, no one's perfect, so you can learn from any imperfect thing or person. And the fact is, Perry had a lot to offer. Yes, he was controversial in his physical approach to the piano, which I had to abandon eventually, but musically, I've heard some amazing performances in his youth. When I was lucky to know him in his 30s, and it was amazing playing. So Hammerklavier, Schubert D major sonata, Appassionata, Gaspar, some very big repertoire, Brahms, Handel, tremendous performer, tremendous player, both technically and musically. But as he got older, he got into the teaching thing. You know, he didn't practice as much, so he couldn't show exactly what he did in previous years, but he was a great inspiration to me. We were like buddies, kind of. You know, we traveled together. I remember we took a drive once from Oberlin to Austin to check out his new house when he moved to Austin for that job. And, you know, I mean, I was a real student of Perry. That's how I prepared for the contest.
Mm-hmm.